This video is about operations with fractions. Fractions always seem to intimidate students. In fact, some math teachers seem to avoid teaching students to work with fractions altogether, but this has some really bad repercussions for future courses. So whether or not you're scared of fractions, it is important to review how we work with them and get some extra practice in, because soon we'll be working with more and more fractions and they'll be more complicated. In this video, I'll cover fractional properties and then operations with them. So first, it's important to realize that you can never divide by 0. Therefore, the information I'm about to cover about fractional properties assumes that no divisors are zeros. So here are the fractional properties that I'm sure you've learned a long time ago, but it's always good to review. So two fractions are equivalent or equal, like this, if and only if when we do cross multiplication, those two products are equal. So A over B equals C over D if and only if AD equals BC. When we multiply fractions, like if we had A over B times C over D, we just multiply the numerator times the numerator and put it over the denominator times the denominator. So this equals AC over BD. When we add fractions, their denominators have to be the same, and we call them common denominators. And if their denominators are the same, then we add the numerators together and just keep the same denominator. Now, if they are not the same, we need to find something called the least common denominator. And we'll get a little practice with that in this video and then in the assignment. When we subtract fractions, it's pretty similar to adding fractions. If they have common denominators, we just subtract the numerators and then put the denominator that they have in common underneath the difference. So if they don't have the same denominator, you have to find the least common denominator. Okay, and then when we divide fractions, dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal of the fraction that you're dividing by. So A over B divided by C over D is the same thing as A over B times D over C. Okay, this is not new stuff. I'm totally aware of that. But like I said, we got to practice this and work with fractions and be comfortable with fractions because we're going to be using a lot of fractions this year. Okay, so let's do some examples with numbers and variables. Let's say we have 2/3 minus 1/4. Well, we're subtracting here, right? But we don't have a common denominator. We have a 3 and a 4. So we need to find a common denominator between 3 and 4, which would be 12, because 3 times 4 is 12 and 4 times 3 is 12. So if you multiply the first fraction by 4, the denominator, you're going to have to multiply the numerator by 4. And then the second fraction, numerator and denominator by 3. So you get, let's change colors here, you get 8 over 12 minus 3 over 12, which is 5 over 12. and this fraction cannot be simplified at all, so the answer is 5/12. Okay, let's say we have 2/3 divided by 4. Well, we're going to keep 2/3 as 2/3, change the division by multiplication, find the reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4, and then multiply straight across. So I'd get 2/12, which simplifies to 1/6. And because that can be simplified, that's how I want you to put your answer, in a simplified form. Okay, your turn. I want you to do 3/2 plus 1/2 and put your answer in simplified form. And then I also want you to do 1/5 divided by 3/10. Work on this problem on your own, and when you're finished, press play and check your answers with mine. Okay, welcome back. First problem I got 2. Second problem I got 2/3. Let's make things a little bit more interesting here and add some variables. Same rules apply, same properties apply, but instead of it just being real numbers, I'm going to replace them with some variables. So this is very similar to the very first problem I did. We have a denominator of 4 and 3. And so that means that in order to subtract these two fractions, we're going to have a common denominator. So the first fraction I would multiply by 3, and the second fraction I would multiply by 4. Okay, so by doing that, this first fraction I get 3x over 12 minus the second fraction, which is 4x over 12. Since they have the common denominator, 12 is the denominator, and then we have 3x minus 4x. Those are like terms, so I get negative x. You can write the fraction like this with the negative in the numerator, or you can make the whole fraction negative. Okay, I want you to try this problem on your own. We have 3 fractions being added or subtracted together, and 3 different denominators. So you need to find a common denominator between all 3 of these and then simplify it. Do that on your own and press play when you're done. Okay, welcome back. I found a common denominator of 30, so I have to multiply each fraction by a different number to get a denominator of 30. And then when I added it all together, I got 21 over 30, which then simplifies to 7y over 10 because 3 goes into both those numbers. And that is it for this video. Have a great one and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.